video. Today I'm going to be doing some Bible journaling with some Clair stamps, but I'm also going to show you a bokeh effect that I created with some tissue paper and circle dies. So for today's Bible journaling pages, I'm going to be using the mini name stamp set. This is from the Clair Stamps Color by Face series, and I'm going to be stamping on the very first pages of my Bible where it says the Old Testament. I've got 2 blank pages here to work with. Now, if you see the page through my other page, I do have a video tutorial on that one. I'll leave that link in the top right hand corner. For my stamping today, I'm going to be using the VersaFine Clair ink. This is a pigment ink, but it stays wet a long time, but it doesn't smear as easily as the VersaFine Onyx Black ink, which I really like to use for stamping too, but it smears pretty easily. This doesn't seem to smear as easily on me, so that's what I'm going to be using today to do my stamping. But I first want to go ahead and create a little frame around the Old Testament words. I'm doing that with my micron pen and my Tim Holtz ruler. I'm just drawing boxes, so 4 lines connected, and I'm doing that twice, one a little bit smaller than the other. And there's a closer look at that. It's not perfect, but it works, and it keeps me from stamping over those words. So for the stamping, like I said, I'm going to be using the mini name stamp set, and I am going to be stamping in pretty much the center. I'm going to leave about 1 inch on the left hand side and on the right hand side without any stamping, because I'll be adding some tissue paper to that. Now for my stamping, I'm going to be turning all of those different names every which way and stamping these out and filling in the center of the page. Now there is a lady on the design team from Clair. She has done a page similar to this. Down in the description box, I'm going to link to her blog post where she does this, and hers is gorgeous. She has gorgeous handwriting and all of that great stuff. So hers is beautiful. I'll leave a link to that. But I'm going to be doing mine all in black today and just stamping around there. Now I have about 4 acrylic blocks front and back going at one time to make it a little bit easier on myself. You don't need that many. You can switch out, and if you wanted to, you don't have to use all of these. If you don't want to, you could use 1 and just stamp it over and over. You could use 2 or 3. You don't have to use all of these, but I wanted to put them all in. Now, one thing that does help get a little bit more stamps on your page, once you have a little bit space between the top and the bottom, you can go ahead and start stamping the same stamp on the top and on the bottom like I'm doing here. That'll save you a little bit of time and not switching out your stamps so often. Now, I didn't want any of these hanging off the edge, so I'm trying to fit them as best I can on the page so they're not hanging off on the top and then on the bottom as well. I'm also turning them on their sides. I'm turning them upside down, whatever way to get them to fit in. I want to fit as many of these and create kind of a collage of names. I'm just going to finish up right on the bottom. I check to make sure I have enough space before I stamp it down. And then I've got one last little space there right on the bottom left hand corner, and I'll go ahead and stamp my last stamp right there. And with that finished, it was time to start on the bokeh effect. But here is a nice picture of those all collaged together, put together on that page. I love the way those stamps turned out. They stamp beautifully with that VersaFine Clair ink. Now, for my bokeh effect, I'm going to be using tissue paper. I got mine at Target. There was this huge thing of like a rainbow assortment of tissue paper. So that's what I'm using today. I am using a very light bluish pool color, a purple, and a gray. And then I'm going to be using circle dies. I'm using a nesting circle set. I've used this several times before. And I'm going to go ahead and pick out about 5 smaller circles from that set. And I will run this through my Big Shot with my tissue paper. I did fold my tissue paper up, so I had 2 sheets. I'm going to go ahead and I folded it up in half and then half again. So I ended up with about 8 different cuts through one time with each one of those circle dies. You are going to need quite a few of these. So I ran it through with all of them once, and then I came back in and ran it through a second time with just the 3 smallest circles, because you go through those smaller circles faster than you do your bigger ones. I went ahead and die cut more of the smaller ones. I cut them out from all 3 colors, and then I'm going to put them in this bowl. I do want to separate them. They do get a little stuck together when you run them through with your die cutting machine. You can flick them. I also found using my quick sticks tool, just picking them up, giving them a little shake, that takes them apart as well. To glue these down, I am using the Liquitex Multimedia Mat. If you do not have this, you can use any number of things. You can use the Collage Medium from Ranger. You can use another kind of medium, whether it's a glossy one, you can use glossy if you want a glossy finish. It really is up to you. You can use gesso. You can use the multimedia mat from Ranger that comes in a little bottle with a little brush on it. You can use the squeeze tube, squeeze a little out and brush it around with your brush. There's a lot of different things you can use to glue these down. I'm using a little brush for this, and I'm just going to start placing down the largest circles first. I also have, underneath my 2 pages, I have page protectors. These are just cheap ones from the dollar store. They come in like a pack of 20. I paid $1 for them. So I can save these and reuse them a few times. Once they get nice and gunky and just kind of full of color, I just toss them. They're inexpensive to use, and they keep your page protected better than the computer paper underneath. This was a tip that one of the ladies on the design team, Carrie, she gave, and it works wonders. Now, I'm using the biggest 2 circles first. I'm using the largest one and the more medium-sized one, and I am just placing these down. I'm not putting down a layer of the medium everywhere. I'm just putting a very light layer of exactly where I want the circle that I'm working with to go. This stuff dries pretty quickly. You're going to be working with a lot of it. You're going to build up quite a few layers. So try to use thin layers, spread it out pretty thin, and only put it where you need it. Now, I'm also coming in and overlapping some of these circles. That's what's really going to give you the bokeh effect. And you also want to make sure when you are choosing colors, you have a light, a medium, and a darker color. That lighter color is, with using them all together, is what gives the bokeh effect, but you want to make sure you have at least one light color in there. If not a very light color, use a white color. That will also really help with it. And you can use 3 colors like I'm doing here. You could absolutely go up and use even more colors if you wanted to. Do kind of a rainbow background, that would be gorgeous. But I stuck with 3 colors here to keep it pretty simple on myself. Now, I am using all of these circles, and I want to make sure that everything is completely covered with color except where I have my stamping. So that means some of these circles are going to hang off the edges. That's okay. Once everything was finished, I can come back in and trim those up later on. But like I said before, I'm starting off with the very largest circles, and I'm going to start working down to the more smaller ones now to fill in a few of those spaces. I still have a lot of white space at this point, so I can still come in with those bigger circles and overlap them and lay them down. You also don't want to use too many of the same colors right next to each other. So you don't want to use a whole bunch of purple right next to each other. You don't want to use a whole bunch of gray right next to each other. A few overlapping is perfectly fine, but you just don't want a cluster of like 5 gray right in the center of your page. I'm also working into the crease. That is very easy. You can just use the end of your brush to kind of push it down into that crease so your pages won't have any trouble folding. And that will allow you to really keep that color flowing from one page to the next, and it almost looks like one cohesive page. Now over on that right hand side, it's going to end up being just kind of one strip of the circles. So you want to make sure you have some bigger ones and then also some smaller ones closer to the edge of the page. That's going to give you a nice variety, and it's not going to look so uniform. Now I'm just coming in and filling in all of those little white spaces. At a certain point I did turn off my camera because this is just pretty much more of the same, layering up those circles. That's all you're going to do. Once you get to the top, you kind of want to start going towards those very smaller circles and really putting those on the top of the page. That's going to help with the bokeh look. But at this point, you can still use those larger ones. That is why it really helps to come in and really cut a lot of those smaller ones. And even though I cut so many, I had just about the right amount. So if you're doing a larger area, you might need to even cut more than I did. Now I'm doing my best not to cover up any of the stamping on the right hand page just because I want that to be the main focal point and the bokeh just to be a little bit of like a background to that. So I'm trying to keep it away from the stamping and not cover any of that up. At this point, it's more just about filling in that left hand page. I pretty much have the right hand side done except for a few little spots, but that left hand side is where I really want to concentrate now and get all of those down. You can see just how much layering you're going to be doing. That is why it is so important to really use pretty thin layers of that multimedia mat. If you get any places where you're not getting it to stick down, you can come back in with another layer over the top. Now once everything was done, I did finish up with one last layer of multimedia matte over the top of everything, including the stamping. I let this dry overnight. It does take a little while to dry. And then I came in with some scissors and just trimmed up everything around the edges. And here is a final look at the project all put together. You do have a few little bumps, but for the most part, this is so smooth and it's such a fun technique to use to really fill up your pages with color. I just love the way it turned out, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and there are a few links on the left side of your screen you can click on. Happy crafting, everyone.